Instead of really thinking about how can I get through this, I thought, what could I get from this?
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Peter O. Estévez Show. This is your host, Peter O. Estévez. Today's guest is Karen Mangia. Karen is one of the most sought after leaders in the world, sharing her thought leadership with over 10,000 organizations during the course of her career. She's the author of 4 books: Success from Anywhere, Create Your Own Future Work from the Inside Out, Working from Home, Making New Normal Work for You, Listen Up, How to Tune in to Customers and Turn Down the Noise, and also Success with Less, which details her setback to come back from a major medical crisis. A prolific blogger and sought-after media interview, she has been featured on Forbes and regularly contributes to Thrive Global, Authority Magazine, and ZDNet. Thinkers of 360 named her as number 9 on their list of global thought leaders and influencers on health and wellness, and number 12 for mental health. Hello, Karen, and welcome to the Peter O. Estévez Show.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. I mean, it was getting lonely in my virtual office, so it's great to have company.
Yes, it is. You know, the working world has changed, right? And you said it, virtual office. You know, who would have thought of that 2 years ago, right? So everything has been disrupted as a result of COVID. And how has that affected you? And how has that given you a different view on success and on the working world?
Like all of us, I've been thinking about how connection is different. And like so many of your listeners, you know, in my world as a thought leader, I enjoyed the luxury pre-pandemic of being with people in person. You know, whether that was in conference rooms, at whiteboards, you know, on stages, doing workshops. And when the pandemic hit and suddenly there was no travel and I was in my home office, a thought kind of occurred to me. And it was, you know, instead of really thinking about how can I get through this, I thought, what could I get from this? You know, what might this be an invitation or an opportunity to do? And so in my case, I was thinking about how to still connect and scale and be of service during this time. So a lot of the work that I've been doing has shifted from being in person and on stages and live spoken words to being virtual and doing things like writing books and, you know, connecting for small roundtable conversations using technology. So, you know, it's kind of a new way of being in a lot of ways.
Well, and you have done an incredible use of your time. You wrote 4 books during the pandemic. That's incredible. What an incredible task.
Yes. And at this point, I feel like I don't have anything left to say that's worth writing down. So now I'm interviewing other people to get their insights. But really, you know, what I thought about was this, you know, this is a time of opportunity if we choose to see it that way. And what writing the books has done is create ways to connect with people and broaden my network, and in some cases, deepen relationships with people in a way that might not have been possible if I were still flying a couple 100,000 miles a year.
You're a very successful woman in the entrepreneur world. You are an incredible thought leader and sought after speaker. What are 2 major things that have defined who you are today?
I think about, you know, a couple things. First of all is my grandparents, my relationship with my grandparents. And I think for all of us, there's someone in our life who represents complete love and acceptance and total belonging. And for me, those people are my grandparents. And you know, I have so many wonderful memories of times with them through the years. I'm fortunate. My grandfather is still living and he's set to turn 98 in a couple weeks. And I mean, he still day trades stocks on his 2 iPads. He has a couple laptops. He has a smartwatch. And something that strikes me, I mean, he was an entrepreneur. I mean, my grandparents had 6 grandchildren. They always had time for me. Always. And something that I have taken away that I've learned from them for so long is what matters. I mean, my grandmother was never like, I need to, dust the house or prepare the dinner. I mean, they would keep all of us as grandkids for 1 week in the summer without our parents. My grandmother always had time for us, right? Playing cards, doing whatever. And I think, wow, make time for what matters, make room for people. And the second one for me, certainly a defining moment in my life that really changed my relationship with success and how I see it and define it was major medical. And I hit a point in my early 30s where, I said, if you looked at the LinkedIn, profile, it looked like everything was going great, right? There's this series of promotions. I'm involved in these not-for-profit organizations. And along that path, I was buying into the belief that many of us do, which is, we have to do more, to have more, to be more, and that will sum up to success. And there were a series of signs that things weren't quite right. And I did what most of us do. I just sort of explained them away and ignored them and just got busier. So I couldn't hear my inside voice saying to me, is this really working for you? You feeling okay? And there was this absolutely attention-getting, impossible to ignore moment when I went to pick up my mobile device and call my brother, and I could not remember his name. I mean, I have one brother. I talk to him every single week. And I thought, all right, I can't ignore this any longer. And I had no idea at that moment in time that I would then be going down a 3.5-year journey of being chronically misdiagnosed. I mean, my hair fell out, my skin turned gray. Yeah, I gained 55 pounds without ever having a baby. And one day I looked in the mirror and my eyes had literally changed color.
Wow.
Yeah. So you want to talk about not knowing the person staring you back from the mirror. And the thing that's shocking is through all of that and another 5 years of treatments to get well, I didn't miss a single day of work. I didn't stop really, doing and achieving and all of those things until it hit the point where I literally was so fatigued that I could not sustain my own formula for success any longer. I mean, I could not do more to have more to be more.
I'm going to interrupt you right there. Why did you do that? Because I think that's pivotal. And I think to a certain degree, many of us have done that in our lives one way or another. And I think that Corona has been the greatest interrupter of our lives. It has been the interrupter that has put a pause on all of our lives, whether we liked it or not, has forced us to be confined to our homes, to away from our jobs, away from distractions, and to really kind of reassess and reevaluate what success is to each of us, right? And really what the meaning of life is to us. So why did you continue doing that? Continue going to work, even though you knew that you were not well, that you were not doing well, you were not feeling well, but you kept showing up?
Yeah, I had no idea who I was or who I would or could be without the activity and the accomplishments.
Wow.
Yeah, in my head, those were intrinsically linked. And, in my case, and people often ask me, well, what was the diagnosis? I mean, how did that happen? I found out ultimately that I had DDT pesticide poisoning. And for as challenging as it is to get that out of your body and out of your system, what I realized is I had arrived at that place because I was carrying not only toxins in my body, but more importantly, a toxic set of beliefs where I had basically poisoned myself with the belief that, success was a title, success was accomplishment, success was saying yes to everything and everyone else, and always making that look, easy and pleasing and agreeable. And what happened that was so transformative there was letting go of a belief system, and one that has actually worked to get you some measure of what people would call success, is terrifying. I mean, because what you're really saying is, I need to step into a new identity. And shedding, I think, the beliefs that we carry or what we think success is, even if we know it inherently isn't working for us, is as terrifying as being, misdiagnosed and having a mysterious illness.
So what is your definition of success today? And what should our definition, how should we value success today?
Right. What I say now is I think about success as, may I have what I want and want what I have.
That's good, actually.
Yes, yes. And what I think about is there are as many definitions and versions of how to be successful or what success means as there are humans on planet Earth. And accessing success is about doing a couple of things. First of all, pausing long enough, to your point, to define what success means to you, right? I mean, at the point when I was so ill, success to me ultimately became getting well. I mean, being healthy enough to enjoy my life.
Right.
I'm fortunate to be healthy and well now and have a much different support system and way I care for myself. And so my definition of success has evolved. And I think this pandemic pause, as you were referencing, what that's given all of us is an opportunity to take stock of this definition of more and how it relates to success. And I think what people are universally responding with is success is more of what matters, right? And less of what doesn't serve us. Yeah, more of what matters. And I think when we see things like this great resignation or the great reshuffle or whatever you want to call it, people are sending a signal that says, I want more of what matters. And it isn't this, it isn't endless hours and stressful commutes. It's something different. And I'm giving myself permission to go pursue that. It's just, we're seeing it happening in mass right now, I think, because of the pandemic.
Yet you write a book called Success from Anywhere. Why that title? And what is that book going to teach us?
Yeah. Success is not a destination or a location. And, the title speaks to how success is really available to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And, the subtitle of that book is Create Your Own Future of Work from the Inside Out. And what the book will teach you is, and give you permission to do, is first of all, take a pause and reconnect with your values and consider how those values show up in your everyday life. I mean, for some of us, our values have shifted during this time. For some of us, those values, we might know what they are, but they're not showing up in our everyday lives. Start there. And then the book takes you through a thought process of considering some stories and beliefs and circumstances you might have been tolerating that no longer serve you. And we all have these, right? That it's the toxic boss, it's the, friend who's always so negative, whatever that looks like. But we all tolerate circumstances that don't serve us. And I think we tend to tell ourselves these little stories like, it's not that bad, the grass isn't necessarily greener, whatever that is. Or, work needs to happen in an office that's a physical location with other people from 9 to 5, whatever that looks like. And the book takes you through sort of an invitation to release some of those beliefs and challenge some of these long-held misconceptions that we all have about success and about the role that work plays in our lives. And ultimately, where the book guides you, and there's a playbook that goes along with it, is to have some new resources to define, design, and deliver the future for yourself as an individual, and then in the context of your team or your organization. So I kind of summarize it as, the future of work is less about how we reconfigure cubicles, and it's more about how we design our relationship with work in our lives.
But is it really? I mean, how do you really see that the corporate world is going to handle the future of work? Is it really going to, is the remote working really working for everybody? Okay. And what are the complications and challenges that we've seen as a result of remote working?
Well, this is an invitation to step into a new kind of freedom. And I think what I see so frequently is at really the bedrock issue that we're trying to solve for here is trust, right? Lots of leaders are saying, can I trust to know that you're working on, the outcomes that I want you to deliver when I'm not seeing you? Better Up, I believe it is, right, is dominating the headlines right now, this mass Zoom layoff, right? They get everyone on, they say, hey, we did the diagnostics, you're not working, you're all laid off, right? So there's this trust on the employer and manager side. There's also this trust factor on the employee side that says, when I can't see my manager in person, how does my manager know how hard I'm working, right? How do I sort of get that FaceTime? And so I think what we're really trying to reconcile here is the trust factor. And you see people pursuing all kinds of ways to reconcile that trust. I mean, the reality is organizations are always going to need to know the output of their employees, what outcomes you're delivering. That's not going to change. How you get there, is the way that you signal whether or not there's trust in your organization. And there was literally just an example in the headlines of a large number of workers and sort of a new app that's trending now that you install. So it makes it look like the mouse or the cursor on your laptop or work issued device is moving so that it looks like you're working, so you can take a break just to get some lunch, because there's micromanagement. There was just another example as well of an organization that is installing video cameras in the homes of their employees because they want to make sure that they're working. I mean, that's a very invasive signal that says, we don't trust you. Opposite side of that coin, I mean, what's the opposite of micromanagement? And I think it's ownership. How do we leverage ownership as a tool to build trust? When you trust someone to own something, and then more often than not, they'll demonstrate to you that they're deserving of that trust, you can move the needle on this dynamic, right? It makes asynchronous work less of a factor. It makes distributed and hybrid work less of a factor. But what happens is it challenges our beliefs, right? It challenges that belief that to see you is to trust you. To see you at your laptop is to know you're working, right? I mean, come on, we all know people who are playing fantasy sports, from their laptops.
In the office, yes.
They're a lot of hours, yes. Right? I mean,
yes.
And this is what I'm talking about, right? Yes, there is a tug of war and a back and forth. But what I'm seeing is the organizations that are retaining employees and moving in the direction of growth are revisiting the lines on ownership and sending more signals about trust.
We're talking a little bit more about the corporate world, but let's talk about the individual, and let's talk about the belief systems, the shift that can help shift others. What was that social condition? What was the belief system that you had adopted that shifted to help you become more assertive in who you are, and not to look for the recognition or gratification in the title and the promotion and the recognition in the next event that you were booked for, to where you are more comfortable with who you are today and don't need that. What are some of the practices or rituals that you do in order to gain that we can pass on to the readers of the book, or that we learn from your book?
The beautiful aspect of writing is you do process your own beliefs. I don't know. I sometimes will hear other authors say, you write the book you need to read.
Always, yes.
Right. And maybe that there's some truth to that. And when I was writing Success from Anywhere, something really occurred to me, and it was part of the shift within this pandemic, which is I was thinking about this concept of, redesigning our relationship with work. And so in order to redesign our relationship with work, at its core, we need to understand what our relationship with work is like. And as I took stock of that for myself, I realized that if I look across the landscape of my career, at different points, I've wanted work to accept me, to validate me, to tell me I'm successful, to love me back, to give me a sense of community, belonging, all of those things. And I was thinking to myself, what would change if I showed up at work every day, and candidly also in my life every day, from the perspective of these core beliefs? I have enough. I've done enough. I am enough. And so I thought, okay, I wrote this down, right, on Post-it notes and pieces of paper, started putting it everywhere so I would see it. And I thought, what would change? What would I let go of? What might I say no to? What if my default belief was, I already have everything I need. I don't need work to do any of those things for me. And what I discovered was shifting that belief changed my relationship with work, because I didn't need work to do anything for me to make me feel like a whole and complete or successful human being. And when I was able to release that, work started showing up differently for me. And I had wonderful opportunities that started emerging to co-create with people and be of service to others. And then I could walk away at the end of the day thinking, I've been of service, I made an impact. And whether that impact affected one person or a million, it doesn't change how I feel about myself.
Wow.
And so that really changed my lens. One other, something else that I changed, and we all have routines, rituals, and boundaries, right? These ways that we go to work and leave work. And I think we were all probably more conscious of those when we went into a physical space, right? You knew what you needed to do to get out the door and get to the train, right?
Wow.
Or you knew what you needed to do to leave work to get your kids picked up at daycare and get to the soccer practice or whatever that looks like for you. And in the process of reinstituting routines, rituals, and boundaries, in this virtual world, this is where people get into the scope creep, the burnout, the always on, I can't walk away. And also coming into this year with this inflection point, I thought, how could I change my work routines, rituals, and boundaries? And I read a really transformative book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. And I love this litmus test, and I think all the listeners can apply this. I mean, his basic test is, are you spending most of your time on your true value-based high contribution activities, right? In my case, that might be thought leadership creation. Or are you spending the bulk of your time on tasks that if we hired a university student to do them, they could become proficient at them in 6 months or less?
Wow.
And I thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to add anything to my routine, but I'm going to play a game of opposites. So what I used to do is get out of bed in the morning, clear out the email, check the social media, do all of that with the thought process of clearing that out would help me have more calm for the day, be focused. And at the end of the day, I would do my, self-care rituals of, meditation and yoga and writing in my journal and feeling grateful, right? And I thought, okay, what would happen if I did the opposite? What would happen if instead of starting my day with chaos, I started my day with calm? And so I tried it. I just literally did the opposite. I'm like, I will not check my email until starting at 5:00 at night. And the first thing I will do in the morning is set the tone for the day with this calm. It changed everything. And then I went from this calm task, calm mindset into my creative task for the day, that high value work, that deep work that Newport talks about. And I'll tell you what, when you get to the end of the day at 5, 6, 7 o'clock, whatever that looks like for you, suddenly reading the headlines from, the New York Times roundup or whatever doesn't seem that appealing, because now it's standing between you and decompressing and getting on with your life and enjoying your. So again, I say, I didn't add anything to my routine. I simply changed it.
You flipped it.
I flipped it. I did the opposite.
Which is very interesting. You and I had a conversation before we started the recording, and I talk about the 5 pillars: tending to your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial on a daily basis. And I truly believe that is a core foundation to live in a well-being life, to being in self-care at all times, and to also transitioning from a state of survival to a state of flow and living in a state of thrive. And what I find, I start my day that way. I start with self-care, the prayer, the meditation, the exercising, the sauna, every single activity that is going to center me. So by the time I step out of my home and go into my office or whatever it is that I'm going to do, I am in such a calm state, but at the same time, I'm so present here and the now that it makes me aware of what is priority and what's not priority. And you're right, that bit of information of news is not so appealing. That urgent email is not so urgent anymore. So it's a complete mindset.
Yeah. And it's like, if everything is important, then nothing is important.
Absolutely.
And I share these, we all have these times, right? We get busy, we get sucked into the always on activity mode. And when I find myself in that place, and I like to share these questions with folks to unwind yourself from that feeling that everything is important, I like to ask 3 questions and kind of a bonus question. And they're: first, does it have to be? Whatever it is, the task, anything else. Second, does it have to be me? Third, does it have to be me right now? Bonus question, kind of for the win: does it have to be a meeting? Right. And when I can step back and pause long enough, and other people are discovering this too, and I ask those challenge questions many, many times, the answer is it's not urgent. It doesn't have to be, or if so, it doesn't have to be right now. But when that adrenaline is firing, everything feels equally important, right? And when you live in that chaotic state, it's like, I must go from thing to thing and place to place without any thought of, why am I doing this? And I think more importantly, to what end?
Karen, while people were benching during the pandemic on Netflix, on eating, on Clubhouse, and on social media, you didn't write 1, you didn't write 2, you didn't write 3, you wrote 4 books. Walk us through the process and have you really healed from being a workaholic?
Yeah. Great
Have you
question.
recovered?
Well, yes. Have I really recovered from a work addiction? I think about it this way. I understand more now that I do have a finite time, a finite amount of energy and resources, and that I do want to apply my best energy to my highest impact or most valued, outcomes, people, relationships. And so for me, if I'm going to add something, I take something else away. So I think about this as divest before you invest. So I did not, at the same time that I decided to write a book, also decide to do a triathlon, right? Or learn another language. I was like, okay, what is my goal? And do I feel purpose about that? And what am I willing to take away to make space for that? Now, if we think back, right, in 2020, our options of places to go and things to do were extremely limited. And I was no longer on. So I reclaimed a big chunk of time. And
a big chunk of you.
And a big chunk of myself, for sure. I mean, I slept in the same bed, in the same time zone for the same hours every single night. And I thought I had a whole new lease on life. I mean, clarity of thought was mine. And so, in that place and from that space, because those activities went away, it made room for something else. And I wanted to be purposeful so that I didn't fill it in with binge watching Netflix and eating cereal and baking bread or whatever people were doing during the pandemic. I filled it in with something purposeful. And I think the other thing that's key here is knowing how easy it is to get sucked into that always on activity. I did two things sort of differently this time than in some of the other maybe big projects or commitments I've taken on before. The first one is I went really far out on my calendar and I blocked specific writing times far in advance so that I wasn't tempted to try to fit writing in around all my other meetings. I made that the priority. So, I think Stephen Covey is the one that talks about putting the big rocks in first, but it was like that concept. And I got a little ahead on the calendar and wasn't trying to use spare time to do it. I made that priority time. The second piece is I literally set an end date. Okay. So I wrote working from home in 30 days. So for 30 days, I mean, that was really intense, right? That's 7 days a week. That's a lot of focus and intensity. And on day 31, I literally did nothing. It was like, there won't be, another day of this. This will not become my new way of living. Like we've crossed the milestone here. And now we go back to, a sense of balance and more variety and reclaiming some other aspects of my life. So I think about that now more as we can all do a burst of activity from time to time that's really focused and intense, and that's great. The key, at least for me, I found in that recovering activity addict space is to not let that become then the catalyst that pushes you back into that way of living all the time.
So what is your way of living today? What are your, and this is very important, because we talk about this. I talk about the 5 pillars, Robin Sharma talks about the 5 a.m. club. Tim Story talks about the miracle morning. So everybody kind of has their own version of what daily ritual should be, or those 5 or 7 things that people do in order to find their daily balance, in order to increase their productivity. But more importantly, something that is both dear to you and myself, to maintain a good, stable mental health being. Okay, so what are the simple 5 rituals or 6 rituals, the rituals that you do on a daily basis that sets that tone for you? What are those?
The first one is my alarm clock goes off every morning with a song instead of a noise, because it puts me in a good mental state. I thought, I don't like this feeling. There's this like buzzing, obtrusive sound. It puts me in this feeling of like, this is awful. So I changed to a song. So I have a song, and it's usually tied to some kind of mindset I'm trying to tap into, or something that just brings me so much joy that I think this is great. The first conscious moment of the day, I feel joyful. I'm dancing my way out of bed.
Love it.
Great start to the day. The second thing is,
I'm going to interrupt you with a question right quick. Do you wake up at the same time every day?
6:50 a.m. every day.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, 6:50 a.m. Then I immediately do my morning ritual, which is breathing exercises, then meditation, then yoga, writing in my journal, which always has a gratitude section in it. And then I write one intention for the day or one thing I need to or want to make that day awesome. And then I do a little bit of reading, some kind of self-development, spirituality, whatever. That is my morning. Then I get ready. I always dress for work. Okay, so I'm not a person that's sitting around in my yoga pants or pajamas and have not been the entire pandemic. I put on work clothes because I'm going to work and I want to be in a work mindset. So that's the next thing.
How important is that? Because you said I've been on work clothes because I'm going on a work mindset. And most of the time you have not left home. You're working from home. So how important is to embody that today?
Critically important. We all need some kind of signal that we send to ourselves that says, I'm going to work now. This is my go to work ritual. I have some people tell me they walk out of the front door, they walk around the block and come back in. They're like, I've completed my commute. I have people tell me they'll pack their briefcase as if they were going into an office and carry it to wherever they're doing work. I have people say, I have a desk on wheels. I wheel it out. I sit down, I do my work. End of the day, I put it away. But I think that's critically important. The go to work ritual, as is the leave work ritual, which in my case, I've adopted the Mr. Rogers concept, I call it, if you remember this old TV show, right? Sure. Mr. Rogers. And if you remember, right, he would always change his cardigan sweater and change his shoes. So my leave work ritual, I listened to a song on the way out of my virtual office, and then I literally change my shoes because I have a treadmill desk. So when I'm writing, I'm walking, and so I literally change my shoes, Mr. Rogers style. And then I'm like, now I'm at home. I'm done. I'm done with work for the day. And then I also set off a technology device, like totally off time. So usually about 8 or 9 o'clock, at night, my mobile device is on airplane mode. It lives in the kitchen, not by my bed or anywhere else. So I literally shut off all the technology access. That's the other one. And then my once a week really important ritual that is part of my well-being is I cook Sunday dinner for my grandfather every Sunday and do a Sunday dinner with him. So that's a weekly as opposed to a daily.
Wow. That's incredible. You're a Midwestern girl. And when kids were playing about with dolls and trucks, you were playing about going to work at a very young age. Tell us a little bit about that story. I heard that story in another podcast, and I want you to share with the audience for us.
Yes. So I said, growing up, a lot of kids played house or GI Joes or whatever, and I played office. And I would have my brother as my employee, which this is the difficulty if you're the younger sibling, right? You're subject to the whims of the older one. But oh yes, and I even had this outfit that my grandmother got me at Christmas one time. It was this gray and white dress and it had a red belt. And I thought that was my office outfit. So I would put that on when I would play office. And perhaps one of the funniest episodes was when I was at my grandparents' house one time. I thought it was really cool that my grandfather had this old antique desk in the basement. And, he had like the adding machine and, all those old stamps that you would put in the ink pad, right? And stamp on an envelope. Wow. So prime pickings for playing office. And so one day he returned home from work to discover that I had, delivered some very important memos to my office mates, AKA the invisible people living in the rooms in their home. And I had taken his envelopes and I had used not only those ink stamps, but his actual stamps that used to mail things. And I'd put them on the envelopes and then I'd like delivered my memos under the doors of the home. He did not find my play game very funny at that point, but yes, I just thought, all right, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be in charge. We're going to have an office. We're going to go to work. And I think I saw that in a lot of ways as, that I was able to relate to that in the environment that I was in, right? I would see him, going to work. I'd see my dad going to work. And in fact, it's very funny. My parents will tell a story about when I was a kid, I would literally get up in the morning before kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, and I would walk in to my parents' bedroom. I would talk to them while they were getting ready. I would periodically give them these like little stickers, like as a reward for, good behaviors, good activities. And then I would stand up at some point and say, I need to leave now because I need to plan my day. And I mean, I was doing this when I was like 4. So I don't know, maybe some of this thinking about the future of work is hardwired. I don't know, or a lifelong interest, maybe.
So tell me, what do you see actually today as we don't have enough data to know, we don't even know what the outcome of COVID is going to be yet, because we get mixed news information. How do you see the future of work? How do you see it overall? Are we going to continue to be more remote? Are we going to see a plethora of empty office spaces all over the world? How do you see it?
What I see is 2 things. One is, yes, a continued desire for and demand for flexibility, autonomy, and choice among employees. And what I also see is a newer trend emerging that's about committing to gathering with purpose. And by that, I mean, as opposed to saying, well, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, everybody has to come into the office, and people are like, why? What are we doing on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, that requires us to have to be there? I think purpose-filled gatherings where we are more thoughtful about the use cases of when we come together, why, and how we're going to get to some kind of a different outcome in person, whether that's a customer meeting, whether that's a team meeting, a brainstorming session, training, whatever that looks like. So it's not that people never want to be together again. They do. It's people, I think, want more of the why and an understanding of the purpose of that gathering. And there's a need within that to make sure that people have the same definition of that purpose and that why, and that we don't just assume that because we always used to do the team offsite in person, that we'll just always go back to doing that again.
We saw a big boom in the last 10 years, last 20 years, where many of the companies went from creating very friendly working environments, open spaces, foosballs, cafeterias, beer kegs, a lot of things that we thought it was almost like going to a frat party in many companies, in many of the IT companies per se. Do you see that coming back, or where should our emphasis be in employees' benefits? Should we pay attention to mental health? Should we pay attention to medical leave? Should we pay attention to other areas that perhaps we have been neglecting?
Yeah, culture is not perks. I mean, culture is really personality, right? And what people want is to connect with the personality of the organization where they work, the same way that you would connect with the personality of another human being. And, within that, to your point of benefits, people are looking for some choices and also some ways that benefits from their companies give them time back. And some of the more successful experiments right now, is some examples. One is organizations that are offering, tutoring hours as a benefit for people who have children that are in school. Other organizations are experimenting with concierge hours. So someone can run some errands for you, or be there to meet the plumber. Even if, you're at home, you might still be on a call, or, whatever that looks like. People more than ever are valuing choices and also things that return time. Or, I think about it as kind of look in the direction of the genius question that says, how could we make this easier? People are really valuing some resources that make things easier. And that includes easier access to mental health resources for sure.
Do you see a big shift in management, upper management, in C-suites as far as being more open-minded to adopting this type of benefits?
Yes, for the first time, the way I think about it is hiring is the new housing, and it's a candidate's market.
Okay.
And so within that, people are thinking about how do you attract and retain top talent? I mean, I was just meeting with a very large global organization the other day, and the dilemma they were sharing with me is their plan is to grow their business, and it's a publicly traded company, for 4x growth over the next 3 years. And they are leaking talent like a sieve. I mean, they don't literally have enough people working to achieve that goal as currently stated. And they invited me in to do this sort of closed door session because they were like, what do we do? I mean, we are aware we can't get to where we've committed to go with the people we have. And so, when you start to break some of that down, I mean, not only does it have a financial impact, it's also people have more choices than ever before. I have someone that I mentor that she's a project manager, and she was saying, she was getting ready to look for a new job. She was leaving her company, and she put the inevitable flag on LinkedIn, and she said, I felt like the most popular belle of the ball. I mean, people are coming out of everywhere. She's never had so many job offers, and she's in the middle of her career, right? Choice drives change.
Wow. If you could leave the audience with the message, what would be the most important message you want them to take away from our conversation, Karen?
You have to live well to work well, and work well to live well.
Karen Mangia, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, where I regularly share new content, new ideas, and also feature stories of the ways people are redefining success.
Go out and get her book, Success for Anywhere. Where is it available?
It is everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and lots of independent retailers. So there's a choice to suit your preference.
I have taken a quick glimpse at it. It's an incredible read. Go out and get it. All the information would be available in the show notes. Karen, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This time has been a gift. I appreciate it.